an anonymous friend, is fixing these brakes that we found, right, on my bike. Right, he's already done this side. He's already towed the pad, right, and he fixed the problem that was here. He greased it up with some Carmex, right, because these little posts, they do need grease.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
So okay, so let's go back to the beginning. The problem with these brakes, after we put them on, is that when you pulled the cable, they wouldn't return. They would not come back off the rim. And so there are many problems, but the main one was that when I took it off, the post was just disgusting. Look, you know how your deep fryer looks when you don't clean it for 6 months? It's got all that burnt crap and shit in the bottom of it, and
talking about
the
down here
sides
on the
all
post.
gooey. Well, this looked like one of them fry daddies that your mom's had for your whole life and never cleaned it once because she likes the way the chicken tastes.
Right here.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it in there. The brass is disgusting, and the post is disgusting, and we got to clean that off. We don't have the right tools. So the way I did the other one was tweezers. We're all about the practical here. I used the serrations on the tweezers to knock some of the bigger stuff off. Then I switched to a rock. And it's, and at the co-op, my job was always to do the improvisations. All of the, I don't know how it got this way, but none of the regular methods are going to fix it. Well, that was my job. Normally Brian would have an emery paper or sandpaper. He's the whittler.
Or a file, or a set of files.
I've never seen you without a piece of sandpaper in your bag.
I know.
Or a nail file.
I had some of all that shit, but all that shit got left in the desert over there on campsite 1. Remember, I got a problem.
Yeah. And then you can just use your fingers for the rest.
Yeah, I'll give you a paper towel.
I have one, but your fingers knock off the rest. Because I don't know if you ever tried this experiment before, but if you have a razor that's dull, you can take it back across your finger skin. Not so you're cutting yourself, but drag it across the other way, and it'll strop the razor enough that it'll sharpen it.
Yeah, that's that old guy tip number 1. My grandpa used to do that.
Yeah, well, your skin's rough enough.
Yeah.
It can take this off. And this is probably more of your fabled chicken grease. This is what happens when you get bike parts from tweakers. Oh, now that's somewhat cleaned off. Still kind of sticky. I'll do a little more on that in a second, but I'll show you the other issue we had here with the. Now I'm going to blame this one on the person at Walmart that assembled the bike, or actually Schwinn sold by Target, I think. So I'm going to blame the guy at Target, not the tweaker that was messing with it.
This is important, people.
Yeah, this is funny. Okay, so I'm gonna first show you how they had this put on the wrong way, because it's kind of funny. And if you've ever worked on a bike, you'll see this immediately. This is how they had the brake set up. Okay. It was like this.
No, explain to him why it's wrong.
So, the way this is supposed to work is these pieces with the 45-degree angle cut onto them go into these pieces which have a 45 cut into them. And that's how you can adjust the positioning of your brakes. That's called the toe. So you can adjust it up or down or left or right to get, and the goal of this is to get the brake so that when it's pulled against the rim surface, it's square, right? You don't want your pads to be wearing funny. You want it to hit squarely and wear the pad down at a 90-degree.
Right, for maximum braking force.
Because you want all of the surface of the pad touching the rim, not just the tip or the side or the edge or like the backup pads we have for Brian. This part of the pad was contacting the very edge of the box section of the rim, and it wore a slot in it. The other one is brand new. It never touched the rim. Still has all of the original surface on it, and yet this one was doing all the braking on the wrong part of the rim.
Yep.
You don't want this to happen. So the way that this actually goes is nothing like this.
Not even close.
So depending on how far away the brake is, you can use one of two of sizes of these. We've already seen that we need the small one first. Then you take one of the sections that pivots, and that slides around in there to get you your adjustment. Then it goes into the arm, that goes on, the next pivot, your washer,
and then finally the nut.
Yeah. Now you can just see everything lines up properly. You can visually, even if you didn't know what it did, if you messed with it enough times, you'd see that this is the way it goes. Alright? Actually, hold on. I have that backwards. It's hard to see with my sunglasses, but I have to maintain some anonymity.
Yeah, yes. Well, your face is not in the frame.
This is in case it is.
No.
Gotta look cool.
Right. His dreads are looking fine this morning, too.
So, this gets you your adjustment.
I'm going to stop right here for just. Here's the loop. Show them the loop. This is what we're using. Improvised. Carmex.
Yeah, what you really want to use is a bike assembler grease, but you got to have something. There's a couple of spots on the bikes you always want to have grease. Anywhere you have metal on metal contact, you want grease. Anywhere you have aluminum against aluminum, if you don't put anti-seize, it'll fuse together. Okay, so the main reason is this brass itself is a lubricating component of this. It will break down and lubricate the joint, but you don't want it to break down too much, because then you get a wobbly brake that doesn't work right.
Yeah.
My brakes are completely worn out because they're original old brakes from the 90s.
Yeah, center pull is what they call B brakes.
No, these are V brakes.
Oh yeah, those are
cantilever.
Cantilever, yeah. Center pulls. I call them center pulls.
Okay. Now you have 3 holes here on most frames. Now here's an interesting thing. V brakes that go on bikes that have 1 hole usually have this adjuster. All right. So we have an interesting setup here, which I think is actually better. We have the brakes off a bike that had a frame with 1 hole, a different vintage Schwinn.
Yep.
This one has 3, so we can use the holes and the adjuster to get a really fine adjustment on this. I think this is the way to go for these brakes, even though I don't like V brakes. But
I don't like them either, but this is what we got.
The center hole is typically where you start with your adjustment, and the hole is to you usually have a fixed spring tension, because there's usually not an adjuster. There's usually just the spring that's in here. It doesn't want to show itself, but there's a spring, goes in, coiled around, and then the post comes through the shell through a hole, and that gives you your spring tension. Now there is not much spring tension on this. This is kind of a crappy spring, because this is off like $100 Schwinn mountain bike.
Yeah.
So usually you want a center hole. We tried that already. It doesn't have enough tension because we have a slight kink in the cable, and it's just, this is what you're dealing with when you got used bike parts, found in alleys and bus stops and whatever. Worked on by meth addict zombies.
Yeah.
You have problems. So now we got a little grease. We already tried the middle hole, doesn't work. We're gonna put it in the top hole, give us a little more tension. We can always adjust it with our fine adjuster. Now, you'll notice I put this one on without the pad on. If you put it on with the pad on, the pad is not going to come over this, it's going to stay in here and hit, and you're not going to be able to get that top hole. So it's easier to just do it like this. When you put the nut in, or the bolt, don't grease the bolt.
Goes in dry.
You grease the pivot. You do not grease the bolt. And if you have a nice bike shop in your garage or whatever, and you have the $40 little palm torque wrench set, there's a torque spec for these on the brakes packaging usually. It's in Newton meters. If you don't have it, don't over tighten it. Remember, this is just to stop it from falling out. This doesn't actually compress anything or hold anything in place other than stop this from sliding off. You don't need to break your wrench off putting it on.
There's dude, right on time.
It must be 9:30.
Right on time. Smokey's normal bowl of the day before he goes back to work.
Yeah. So remember to put that on first, and then put on your pad. And then when you put the nut on, don't get it tight. Just get it so it doesn't fall out.
That's because you still have to tow the pad.
Yeah. And it helps to get all your tools set up. Now, there's an arrow. You may not be able to see it, but there's an arrow on the pad. Usually here or here. It's right here. Take it back off so you can see.
I can say sorry. I got it.
Okay.
Shot of it.
It tells you which direction the pad goes. Now, in our situation, we have it reversed because we have front brakes on the back. They still work fine. I could have flipped the pads around, but we've been at this for a minute. I had to do this twice because Brian wanted to make a video after I was almost all the way done.
Yeah, it's important stuff, dude.
Now, there's holes in the back of this pad for a towing tool that goes in there and stops from twisting when you're tightening this nut down. But if you don't have that, then what I like to do is, you know that when you twist this, the pad's going to rotate this way. So you cock it a little bit in the wrong direction so that when you tighten it, it adjusts itself into place. And then you can hold it with your finger. And you'll see here in a second, once we get some torque on it, it's going to rotate a little bit. That made a liar out of me, doesn't want to go. The other one went right into place.
Oh man, that's some strength right there. Quarter turn back. There you go.
This one's locked. Doesn't want to move. There we go. So you want it to hit the pad or hit the rim squarely, and when it's fully compressed, you don't want it hitting the tire. When it's coming in, you don't want it hitting the tire, but you don't want it to hit too low. You don't want the brake when it hits the rim to be all the way down here.
Yeah, you want it to, between the rain groove and the top of the rim.
I'm gonna go up just a little bit.
See, because this wheel does have a rain groove right here. See.
Now, let me show you real quick. What that little swivel piece in there is for is to adjust this way and to adjust this way. That lets us get the thing on there squarely. So if this is loose, you can compress this against the wheel, wiggle it around, and get everything nice and flush with the rim surface. And then holding it there, tighten it. They do make a tool that does this, a brake towing tool. You just compress both of them down, hold it there, and screw the things in. A little piece of plastic Park Tool makes. We'll put a link to that.
Park tools are the best tools.
I like Pedro.
Yeah, but you're weird.
They got a better grip on them usually. That Park Tool rubberized foam material crap.
Yeah, rips off.
Once you get grease on it, it's slippery and it flakes off. Alright, so that's pretty good. Both of them are hitting good. And you got to remember how this is going to work. This one's going to stay pretty much stationary. This one's going to...
Yeah, that's the pull. That's what they're called, referred to as side pulls.
Yeah. Pretty good. See all that? Can you see that?
Yep. Got them lined up really good.
If you're looking at this line here, it's flush with the, it's parallel to the rim. And the pad surfaces are flush. There's no gap. So they're going to get a good grip.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill myself.
Oh, you got 2 brakes now.
Now you can see why I needed that new tire. Anyways, back to what we're doing.
Alright, then a trick that the dude at Bike Saver showed me for getting the... Because I hated these mostly because I could never get them adjusted right. Now the trick that he showed me is for getting... Because when I have this pulled against the rim, I need to have it back off the rim a little bit when it's in its, relaxed state without the tension on it. So what he showed me was that instead of doing what most people do is tighten this and keep loosening it, pulling it, tightening it, redoing it like I used to, you just get it against the rim, and then basically what you need is the distance from this side of this to this side of this for your pull. So you just line up the end of this with the end of this bracket, and then you tighten it. And that should give you pretty much what you need in terms of your brake pull distance. And then you can fine adjust it with the adjuster barrel
At the lever.
On the lever. And because we have this interesting combination of brakes meant for frames with no adjustment, yeah, we actually have a little bit of play in terms of adjusting. And the reason I like that is because you'll find with these brakes, one side tends to rebound at a different rate than the other side. And with that fine adjuster, and notice I didn't squish this till all the fibers are flat and breaking. I didn't squeeze this out around. Just got it. It's a cinch bolt for cinching the thing, not smushing the thing. It's not called a smush bolt.
All right.
All right. So what usually happens is the stationary side will rebound its little bit, and the other side will stick, or vice versa. With this, we'll be able to fine tune those. Now, when we put this in, we have our brakes off the rim. Should have them off pretty good. This side is where you got to get that fine adjustment in, because this is the side that doesn't really come off the rim. And I gotta reconnect this up here because it pulled out the first time that we tried it, because things were sticking, and they were sticking because some genius.
Yeah, me.
Huh?
Me.
You didn't grease the brake.
Oh, that you talking about that other thing.
Some genius decided that they were going to grease the brake cable. Let's see, we got to readjust this now. Back in the day, and by back in the day I mean in the late 80s, early 90s, the cables that you got needed a little bit of lubricant on them before you jammed them through the housing. And like every other thing, mechanical bits of wisdom and stuff your grandpa gave you, or your dad, or your cousin, or friend Billy, nobody ever told you when that shit was not relevant anymore. And if you didn't read Sheldon Brown's paper on this and figure out, wait a second, that shit's not necessary, and actually on modern brakes is counterproductive, you still did it. I just learned this tip this week, that cables these days and the housings already come with something Teflon based in them.
Really?
So if you put grease on them, it collects dust and actually does the opposite.
It's counterproductive.
Right. Some
Really?
genius put some kind of axle grease on these cables. You could feel it on them. and the cables
You could see it in the lens.
they don't retract. When you pull them, they're just stuck. So if you have brake cables that were made after 1988 or so, don't lubricate them.
Leave them be. Don't spray them with the WD.
All right. Now, hopefully,
Hey.
no, still got a problem.
Yeah, but they work. See,
But they don't rebound.
They don't rebound.
So they're going to drag on the rim.
This one does. This one comes off cleanly.
Right, but look at how long it takes.
Yeah, I know. It's a slow process.
It's because we have drag in the cable somewhere. Because some genius crimped them, and the other genius lubed them.
And the third genius
And
put them together wrong.
And somebody looks like somebody melted this plastic shit with a lighter. And Brian likes to pull this brake even though it hasn't ever worked, so he's going to pull them and they're going to drag.
They're going to drag. Yeah, I have a bad habit of keeping my fingers on it. It's the Valentino Rossi theory. Right? Keep your finger on the brake whenever, so that way you're already ready there to pull the brake lever.
Yeah, except you're going to wear your brakes out really fast.
Right, that's why he wears his brakes out really fast.
It is getting better a little bit. But
Yeah, it'll wear in. As soon as that plastic shit right there's right.
well, we can take that out. That's a liner.
It'll wear in. Leave it alone.
You can pull this out.
I know you can, but dude, I'm I only got 16 gigs on this phone card.
Yeah. Okay, we'll end the movie.
Is it done? Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Brake setup 101 for linear brakes, right, on a Schwinn Hybrid Avenue, right, by Anonymous Friend.